Hello and welcome to a new episode of Culture Magazine, where we bring you the latest cultural events taking place around the nation. Stay tuned for this episode, we have a lot in store for you. We're here at the amazing Cairo Opera House, and the Cairo Opera House always offers the best and most interesting cultural events taking place in the nation's capital. Let's go find out more about what the Opera House has in store for us.
The Cairo Opera House celebrates Valentine's Day with a romantic comedy opera performance under the supervision of its artistic director, Dr. Iman Mustafa. The show consists of 2 consecutive concerts presented by the pianist Greg Martin and directed by Dr. Abdullah Saad on the small theater stage. The program includes the short comic opera The Telephone by the Italian international musician Carlo Menotti. Its events revolve around the character of Lucy, who spends most of her time in telephone conversations, and her friend Ben tries to ask for her hand in marriage, but the phone rings constantly until he discovers that the only way to tell her of his desire is through the phone, and he performs this through the soprano character.
Actually, Cairo Opera House always is always updated, and with each occasion we have our concerts and our festivals. So tonight is the St. Valentine's concert in the small hall at Cairo Opera House. We are singing, we are all performing extracts and parts from operas that talks about love. So simply it's arias and duets from operas about love. Actually, tonight there is also the telephone opera. It's a short opera by Menotti, the composer Menotti, and it's also a funny story about love. And there is always an Arabic music concert as well. The theme is love, but concerning our own concerts as opera singers, Tonight I'm performing Rusalka's Song to the Moon. It's from an opera that's called Rusalka. It's by the Czech composer Dvorak, and it's a mermaid. The character is a mermaid called Rusalka, and she's singing her song to the moon, asking the moon about her lover, and asking the moon to tell him how much she loves him, she thinks about him, and tell him to come and see me, because she's a mermaid who fell in love with a human being. So this is my aria for tonight, and always the Cairo Opera House is updating and going with all the occasions, the special occasions. So I'm glad to be part of this tonight. This is very important because the children are the future members of the society. So with all what's going on with different kinds of arts and singing that's going on, the role of Cairo Opera House is really very important. So we always at Cairo Opera House have special concerts during the day. We receive schools, we receive students from all different schools in trips to the Cairo Opera House, and that's to let them know about those arts. So Cairo Symphony Orchestra, we perform many works that are specially written for children, that let them know about the instruments, about the orchestra, about some certain morals and stories. So the Cairo Opera House does a lot of things of this kind, different concerts that are specially for children, and some of them are during the day, so they can accommodate school trips, and some of them are in the evening, but they are always full house. This is very important because really children are the future members of this society.
This opera is something we can all relate to. It's a person who wants to propose to his, say, lover or his partner, but she constantly keeps distracted by the telephone, which is something we all now use, and you see nowadays everyone distracted with their phones. So we kind of have a strong relation with the opera, that the telephone keeps us all distracted, but eventually, at the end of the opera, I use the telephone to propose to her, because I need to leave and go catch my train. I use the telephone to tell her, will you marry me? So that's the fun part of this opera. The types of opera that we can all relate to. We can all relate to opera, but especially the telephone. It's something in the present tense, something happening nowadays with the telephone, with the normal everyday life.
The main idea is about love, actually. Ben isn't in love with Lucy. He's trying to marry her, and his main competitor in the opera is, of course, the telephone. So it's a comedy opera, of course, but its main idea, it's about love. So it's something funny to represent in Valentine's Day. Actually, no, I was in a regular school, not in the conservatoire since I was a child. And I joined the conservatoire for like the 4 years of college. So I joined actually also the Cairo Opera Company in 2020, just 2 years ago. So no, actually I didn't study since I was a child. It's been like for 6 or 7 years. Actually, I just did Rigoletto. It was in the 12th of January, and I did Gilda. It was the main role, so this is the main success for me right now. Hopefully, I'm gonna do stuff like this again in the coming days. I mean, you have to be up to the test. You have to be up to to a certain abilities. You have to have the abilities needed to sing opera, because not everybody can sing opera, of course. So you have to be up to the game. Actually, we did a lot of gala concerts and Disney concerts and musical concerts. So people started to know who is the Cairo Opera Company. You know, we targeted children, we targeted young audience, not just the classical audience. So I think we gradually made people, or made them, got them introduced to opera in general.
It is worth noting that the Cairo Opera Company was officially formed in 1994 and presented many famous international operas. Its repertoire includes more than 32 famous opera plays. The company members also took part in huge performances on some of the greatest theaters in the world and succeeded in forming a fan base interested in opera singing as one of the finest forms of singing arts. The Cairo Opera House is celebrating Valentine's Day with a romantic comedy that touches the spirits of its audiences. This is Abir Gindi for the Cultural Magazine.
You're still watching Culture Magazine. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far, but we have a lot in store for you in this episode.
The Cairo Opera Ballet Company, under the supervision of its artistic director Erminian Kamel, presented Cleopatra Ballet, accompanied by the Cairo Opera Orchestra, led by Maestro Muhammad Saad Basha, choreographed by Jose Perez and assistant René de Cardenas, lighting designed by Yasser Shalen, set design Muhammad Al Gharabawi, scenery and costume designed by Manuel Lasiri. Cleopatra's ballet revolves around the historical story of the Queen of Egypt and her marriage to Mark Antony, who divided the role of the Roman Empire with Octavius after killing Julius Caesar. Then Octavius declared war against Cleopatra and Mark Antony, and their defeat in the naval battle of Octium and their tragic end.
Cleopatra Ballet has been performed the first time in 2019, but the direction of the whole ballet was not yet finished, let's say. We were working a little bit hurried, and it was not completed as the story, as changing of the scene in the stage. So last year I decided to review a little bit the sequence of the scenes, and that time it was more successful and more understandable from the public, because you know Cleopatra is the queen of Egypt, and no mistakes are admitted in a ballet, even because we have to say the story as it is written, and it's part of the Egyptian culture. To say the truth, this ballet is difficult in a way, in this way, because there are so many characters. Except Cleopatra, we have Antonio, Caesar, Apollodoro, Antoniano, and even Tolomeo, the brother of Cleopatra. So to distribute, even in the casting, to choose the right dancer to interpret, let's say, Caesar, or to interpret Antonio. And this was in the beginning not easy, because the dancers were dancing this for the first time. And the choreographer is Jose Perez, and he did a fantastic job as a choreographer. And of course, the music of Mohammed Saad Basha is fantastic. I cannot imagine anything better than this music. It suits exactly to each scene, from the very beginning of the presentation of the personage of Cleopatra to the love story, first with Caesar, then with Antonio, and at the end, the suicide of Cleopatra. So each scene has a particular mood and character, and the music expressed exactly the feeling and the sentiments, because Cleopatra was a big woman, so she was passing through all the stage of being young queen, then married with Caesar, and then she had the baby, so she became mother, and then she lost Caesar because he was killed, and then she met Antonio. So her story is very complicated, let's say, very full of ups and downs. And the music described it perfectly.
This ballet in 2 acts and 25 scenes, composed by Mohammed Saad Basha. It is the world premiere for the ballet based on the historical story of Queen Cleopatra, the last Egyptian queens in ancient Egyptian history. The ballet used a new classical language in dancing, inspired by both classical ballet technique and ancient Egyptian dancing, which is known from the pictures drawn on the walls of Egyptian temples. The modern language appears in some scenes, example, Isis and Cleopatra scene, which is mostly a fantasy. I was dreaming to stage the ballet Cleopatra, but in the beginning I couldn't find the right choreographer. I didn't want to use a very classic technique, but still on point, because all the dancers are dancing on point, and something that brings the modern time in where we are with ancient Egypt. And I found Jose Perez, and then the miracle, as I said, for the music of Mohammed Saad Basha. And myself, I am considering myself Egyptian now, so I could see and I could choose even how to develop this ballet, because you know I am here from 33 years, so I am absorbing already the Egyptian culture, and I am appreciating the deepness of the Egyptian culture. This came with a lot of rehearsals, and curing very much the details of expression, of movement, of reaction with the characters. But this came by rehearsing with ballet, with the choreographer, then later by myself, because the choreographer left, and I continue training, especially the first dancers. It is noteworthy that the Cairo Opera Ballet Company was founded in 1966 and was affiliated with the Higher Institute of Ballet and presented its first performances in the same year. It was launched outside Egypt since 1972 and toured many countries of the world, including Russia, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Germany, France, and Tunisia, and many other countries. It became one of the affiliated teams to the Cairo Opera House in 1991, and its repertoires include a group of the most famous international classical performances, including Romeo and Juliet, Swan Lake, The Nutcracker, Giselle, Don Quixote, Cinderella, Hamlet, and many others. Queen Cleopatra's and her love story and her historical marriage to Mark Antony witnessed love, drama, conspiracies, even battle ending up with death. All this rollercoaster of events and emotions was beautifully translated into a dazzling ballet performance accompanied by a live orchestra that added royalness to Her Majesty's ageless story. Shuru Bikir, Cultural Magazine.
Egypt has a long-standing history when it comes to music and singing, and especially when it comes to our heritage. We have a lot of different forms of art when it comes to this form of singing. The Cairo Opera House enjoys to preserve this art form by performing on their stage a vast number of pieces related to our musical heritage.
Within the framework of the artistic and cultural role that the Cairo Opera House plays in preserving the heritage, it organized a concert for the Arabic Musical Heritage Ensemble led by Maestro Farouk Al-Babli on the Arabic Music Institute stage. The band presented a bouquet of the most wonderful songs from the time of the beautiful art of giants of singing, Kulthum, Farid Al-Atrash, عبد الحليم حافظ, محمد فوزي, وردة, نجاة الصغيرة, شهرزاد, محمد رشدي, محمد عبد المطلب, and others. These songs were presented by the stars of the Cairo Opera House from the Heritage Band for Arabic Music, Yasser Suleiman, Ahmed Mohsen, Ahmed Sabri, Mohammed Shawqi, Angham Mustafa, Hasne, Noah Hafiz, and Hanan Isom. songs were جددت حبك ليه، ايه اللي انكتب لي، الحياة حلوة، بالسلامة يا حبيبي بالسلامة، كم ناشد المختار ربه، في قلبي غرام، وجاني اللي بحبه، أوقاتي بتحلو، ما بيسألش عليا أبدا، انت مين يا اللي أنا مش عارفك، وحشتوني يا ليلة ما جاني الغالي، and سلمولي على مصر. The National Ensemble for Arab Music is an Egyptian orchestra to revive the masterpieces of music and heritage founded in 1989 by Dr. Ratib Al-Hifni. Maestro Selim Sahab has led the troupe until now in the Egyptian Opera House. The troupe succeeded for 3 decades in drawing the attention and hearing of the masses for the original artistic values in the Arab music.
This brings us to the end of this episode of Culture Magazine. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more here on Nile TV.